the SM Media Podcast Network. Hi folks, and welcome to the final episode of our SM Media Countdown to Cheltenham 2025 series. I'm Scott McPike. It is always a pleasure to be your host. The countdown is over. We've had Cheltenham's in the history books for 2025. This is our review show. We are going to obviously look back at what was a busy week of racing. As dramatic a week of racing as I can remember in a long, long time. To join me as always, it's a pleasure to welcome from the Scottish Daily Mail, Callum McClurkin. Callum, we've taken a bit of time just to obviously recap everything, get our train of thoughts together. How was the week? And 2 weeks after, what's your overall conclusion of the Cheltenham Festival 2025?
Yeah, pretty unpredictable, I have to say. It was the festival, kind of the law of averages kind of realign with itself a little bit, and it's a very difficult game. Even when you've got horses that are perceived to be far superior, and be honest, the form book telling you that they're very, very hard to beat. But you still need your ground, you still need a bit of luck, you still need to jump properly, and you need pace and you need tactics to go your way as well. And for a lot of them, it didn't, and that presents punters with a very difficult conundrum, because if you are intending to row in with odds-on shots, you're going to get sunk pretty early, and there are kind of alternative lines that you can take, without favourites and things like that, or swerve if the thing wasn't going on. So I think long term it's a good thing for Cheltenham Festival that was a series of shock results. Personally, I managed to win on the week, just about a couple hundred up, but mainly thanks to Hottie Kalou in the first. I've got to say, if that get beat, it would have been a pretty sore one with most other punters. So yeah, it was about grinding and surviving away and trying to find a way to conjure up some profit, which fortunately I managed to do.
Yeah, I was kind of the same. Ended up a wee bit in profit, mainly through, as you say, without markets. I think a few each ways. Like I look back to even the first day, Liam Swagger and the Boodles was a big one for me. That was a big kind of like turning point in the first day, because like Masborough was a big loss. Nothing went right in the Ultima. Champion Hurdle was what it was, and I was like, Liam Swagger brought me back into the kind of red for that day. It was just a case of a lot of horses I fancied finish second or third. It was just one of those weeks. It was like, we'll get into it, but it was like so many missed opportunities. Friday ended up being the best day. Dino Blue, Kyrgyz, and obviously Wonderwall being a big winner as well, and managed to back against Kopek to me in the final race, which got me back, got a decent number. It was just a couple of horses I laid, done quite well, like Kribili I laid in the Ultima. So it turned out being an okay week. Again, it was one of those very much that felt tough at the end, but it was good to get out in front. We did have a few questions regarding the festival. First one was one that was certainly, I think you know me well enough by now to know how much I was losing the plot about this, and I was actually texting you during the racing. How do we improve the starts?
Just basic compromise, really, I think, between jockeys and the starter. Simple as that. I mean, I think a couple of them where he was right to restart, but the restarting procedure is just as unfair as.
Can we agree that standing starts don't work?
Yes, they don't work if the starter lets them go and one of them's turning the wrong way. Or I mean, Maureen lost at the start. There was plenty of personal ambition hurt me in the plate badly. He completely lost at the start. The horses in the restart procedure seem to be more inconvenienced than them coming a bit quick. Now they're coming in a bit quick because of safety reasons, but I think he was probably right on principle for some of them to be called back, particularly the 2 mile handicaps in quicker races. I think maybe he was correct to do that, but he's got them lined back way at the
Yeah,
back, and he's asking them to gallop towards the tape. Now, if you see run of the mill races, just let the tape go 150 yards before they come in, or 100 yards before. I don't really see why they need to hold on to the tape all the time, and that allows them to break into a canter. So, yeah, I think maybe a bit more discretion could be involved. But by the middle of Thursday, it was becoming pretty silly.
it was that. It was just getting more and more frustrating every race. And I get they're in a difficult position, and I get they've got guidelines as well. I just think though we're in a position that this is our championship week. This is the biggest week of the year for racing. We don't get this in the flat, obviously, because we have stables. I've seen people putting that was an idea. That wouldn't work. I've seen it. Certain jump racing does it in other countries. It wouldn't work here. I think the two big compromises we need to see is jockeys, and it's difficult as well. People are blaming the atmosphere. I don't think the atmosphere is a big part. Okay, I really don't believe that at all. But you're asking jockeys to communicate with a starter and things like that. I just think it's a difficult way. I just think there's must be something we can do in that week of the year where a lot of people tune in. If I was a casual fan, I would be put off with that. That's my opinion. Like it's
Absolutely,
just a
yeah.
nonsense.
Plenty of things that do, and that would be top of the list that week. For instance, in the cross country, there's the crowd weren't even there. It's a 3 mile 6 furlong race. I mean, why are they coming in too quick? And why is he not letting them go in a race of that nature? You know, the Ultim as well. 2 mile handicaps I can get it, and 2 mile 4 handicaps I can maybe get better, but because you're wanting the best position possible. One thing that I don't think is talked about enough is the new whip rules,
Yeah, that's
because they
brilliant.
massively favour front runners. So more and more people will want better track position. I mean, Ben Pauling was the most frustrated out of all. When they're fit and firing, they're prominent handy front runners. Colwell Potter and that novice is a handicap that was a restart, from the front. Myertown handicap, which was a restart from the front. These horses are harder and harder to catch because the
Yeah,
slow ones basically aren't allowed to be hit anymore to actually roust up and get involved. So,
yeah.
I mean, a lot of these safety issues, if we're coming to the Grand National in a couple of weeks, with welfare and things like that, they've made a rod for their own back for the spectacle of the sport.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. But I think there's definitely more we can do. One thing we will say about the kind of changes to the racing and things like that, like particularly the novice handicap, that was a great betting heat. I know it was run by a front runner who basically just took it by himself, but it was a very good betting heat. I thought like National Hunt Chase been a good example. I think the Jockey Club do deserve a lot of credit because they did make the action a bit more competitive.
Yeah, I think most of the changes worked quite well. The only thing they need to address now is the Mayor's Hurdle into Grade 2 or downgrade it, because that was, I think that left most people cold.
Let's.
And yeah, but apart from that, they haven't changed. I think everything else did work quite well. Even the cross country race, don't like the handicap, made it more competitive. It was close going to the last. It certainly wasn't a procession for Stumptown.
No.
He had to bide his time, and probably one of the best rides of the festival, and Keith Donoghue understanding the horse to win, delivering him at the right time. So yeah, I mean, I think the handicaps make it more competitive. The issue that they've got is that attendance is still declined.
Yeah.
Um, it wasn't stopping really; it was plummeting. They were kind of pre-warned by that, so they
That's
have.
a that's a pri- do you think that's more a price thing in terms of tickets, or is that more accommodation? Like I looked at accommodation for Cheltenham this like the next couple of weeks, and like you can get a room easily for about £100. Do you know what I mean? You're paying what 10 times that? That's the issue I think here is accommodation is just too much
It's
for
wider society, I mean,
yeah
it's inflation, it's cost of living
yeah
crisis. I mean, when I went on holiday, the first thing I came back to was my council tax going up 8%.
yeah
That's the thing you're going. Even when you're away, you just notice these things going. That's going up 6-8%. It all adds up. And you can be a chief executive or top marketeer if you like. If less people have got less money in their pocket, they're not going to come out and the first thing you're going to cut your cloth with is things like Netflix subscriptions in your leisure time. That's basic economics.
yeah
That's what the case is. So they can't do a lot in that regard. They've made it more competitive. It's probably been a better customer experience, and the betting ring looked reasonably healthy. I think a lot of your kind of casual goers with middling deep pockets with middling interest in the sport were the ones that stayed away.
Yeah.
Can they get them back? Yeah, possibly, but I mean, I think they're just living in a time where everything's a bit uncertain, a bit expensive, and people are much more mindful of what they're spending with. And if you're a racing punter, you should know what value is inside out.
Yeah.
Really, don't you? I mean, you're betting in races every week. You know what's going to be an overpriced accommodation, overpriced burger, bad transport links. It's a big problem in this country.
Yeah.
You can't really get in and out, so you have to stay overnight. So there's glaring issues that are definitely out with Jockey Club's control. But I think the majority of the tweaks worked. I think they've just got to think that's kind of a base level of attendances and it can't get any lower, and just kind of protect that kind of thing, and hopefully try and get an upturn recently. But yeah, most of them were competitive. Certainly they changed the novice chase work, because you could have had 3 pretty weak Grade 1 novice chases at the end. I mean, the winner would have went to the 2.5 mile race. The favourite of the Ground Advisory would have went to the 2.5 mile race. And you could have had a very weak Brown Advisory and an absolute procession at Arkle, because the top 2 could have went elsewhere. Only by night could have went the Mare's Chase. So I mean, it's the thing is, there's so few horses and there's too many races, and that might be the bottom line at the end. What Cheltenham has to say, look, we've got to cut this from 28 to 24, or have 8 races over 3 days, or I mean, it's difficult for them to judge. I mean, they'll keep tweaking it and they'll keep tweaking it away, but there might be a point where down the line that they've got to admit that the golden goose is no more, and they need to cut their cloth a little bit by trimming a few races.
Well, let's move into one. I think you can maybe give one of your answers. What was your ride of the festival?
Ride of the festival. I thought there was quite a few, to be honest. I thought Harry Skelton, the new lion, was magnificent.
Yeah.
I also thought Rachel Blackmore in both Air of Entitlement and Bob Ollinger was terrific as well, and Keith Donoghue in Stumptown would probably be the top 4, I would say.
I want to give a wee bit of a shout out to Jodie Townend on Bambino Fever, because I gave that horse no chance, and I thought she was very, very good. Just how she kind of timed it right and just kind of pushed on. I think but I don't think this bumper will be putting up trees in form in the future. But I think Bambino Fever. I think jockey, a lot of pressure on her. I think she deserves a lot of credit. But yeah, I thought Harry Skelton in the new lion was just top class. We'll get into it when we cover the turners, but I thought the way he was able to. We thought it would be pace. If that horse won it because pace, he ended up outstaying to really 3 miles, in all honesty. So I think massive credit goes to Harry Skelton. Next one, which horse was beaten this year that you think will win next year?
Marshborough.
And what?
The Ryanair.
Okay. I'm going to go for Final Demand to win the Brown Advisory. But I was actually between Final Demand and Yellow Clay. I think we could have Final Demand and Yellow Clay just going at each other for 3 miles next season. Let's go into the action over the race. We'll start with the championship races. We'll go for the first one, the Champion Hurdle. Again, you could write television scripts, we could watch any drama on Netflix, and it wouldn't be half as pulsating as this was. We'll start with Golden Ace, obviously winning the race. There's plenty more of this race we can cover, but in terms of Golden Ace, they rolled the dice. Gosden, Scott, Lorcan Williams was very good as well, and they won. They deserve credit for that.
Absolutely magnificent, and I hope more lesser connections and with lesser horses do this now, because this can happen. It's once in a blue moon, but it can happen. Mm-hmm. It's the basic unpredictability of horse racing, and that should allow you should have big fields for these big races. And if you've got if that's the best horse you've trained, throw it in the best race possible for it. Just do it. I think it happens once a year. And to go to a Mares or something would just be ridiculous. I mean, what connections are Lossiemouth? Lossiemouth would have won that half canter if things been equal. But I mean, Golden Ace, she was remarkably lucky not to be brought down by Constitution Hill. Yes. And then State Man falling at the last as well is gifted of it. She's basically had winter fog and off-colour Burdett Road.
Do you think anybody in the world did of that tri-cast? Did you see anything?
No.
Like,
No, of course not. No, absolutely not. I mean, Goldie, she went off 25-1 in the end. You
yeah.
know, I mean, I did see a couple of 100-1 anti-post slips, and you could have made a case for her to turn over brighter days ahead with on Mare's Novice Hurdle form, and she was coming into form slowly. She had another minor setback in between the Kingwell as well, but yeah, it's definitely the owner's decision to go for it, and it's bold, and it paid off, and it a way a victory for the ages. Really, it was a bit reminiscent of 6 years ago when the top three kind of all misfired to a certain degree. So it's not out of the ordinary, you know. And I mean, there was a 1-8 shot. I think they get beat at Fontwell the week. You know, it happens, and it
Yeah.
happens more often than people think. And and yeah, and it can still happen in championship races. So yeah, I thought it was a great result for the game, really.
Right, let's go to some of the horses who misfired in different ways. We'll start with the one who was probably going to win. I don't think he was going to win by 15 lengths like people are making out. I think, though we did see the best of State Man this season, I think he would. There's people saying about Paul Townend, why did he fire the horse at the last hurdle? I think, just based on past experiences this season, I think he had to do that. Because I think that was the only way to know that the horse was still there. You go along with that?
Yeah, just keeping up the revs. I mean, he ran fine. He just clip the top of it and come down. It can happen. You know, it was a reasonable enough jump, unlike Constitution Hill's 4 out where he just ploughed through the thing. Um, I was a bit surprised there wasn't any comments about kind of maybe low sun or something, you know, being a bit later and that maybe catching him out. The new hurdles that were padded, it kind of flipped and bounced back into him, which might have spooked him and just ploughed in. So maybe he didn't see it and thought it was kind of a panel that was halfway down. But, you know, there were signs of the last in the international where he took too many chances at it, and yeah, he's razor sharp and quick and the best with a doubt when he gets it right. When you get it wrong at full speed, you'll be
The
on the deck.
first three hurdles, he got them beautifully. Like, he looked like the
Oh
old
yeah, I mean,
Constitution Hill.
I backed him, and you were happy all the way through till a mistake out of nowhere comes and he's out. You know, that's how it works, and he badly hampered actually the two that ended front two really.
Yeah.
And State Man wasn't far away from it either, so. Yeah, but he's fine, and he'll go to live another day. And you
Well,
know,
Nicky Henderson has proceeded to do his next game of Cluedo, where he's basically just said, "Well, we're going to Punchestown, then we've changed our mind to the Aintree hurdle. Punchestown might still be an option." I think the Aintree hurdle is not a mistake because I don't know what to go up against, but I don't think the Aintree hurdle was something that was on my radar with him because I don't think he necessarily liked that trip when he won. I know he won easily the last time he did it, which was 2 years ago, but it's a big ass to do that after a fall.
it's not. I mean, no, it really isn't. I mean, it looked a big ass for Stateman after his big effort against Lossiemouth and an Irish champion. No, he's not in a hard race. It's just it's a mistake, and he's clouted one, and maybe the extra half mile will help him because he might go a little bit slower, and he maybe helps him spot a little bit of a better stride. I think he'll get it fine. You know, like you probably get Lossiemouth and Brighter Days Ahead to come up against again by the
What
looks
do
of
you
it.
think of What do you think of her? Right, I did
It's
head.
just not a champion hurdler. I
She's a
didn't. I
she's
didn't.
a
I didn't.
Cheltenham horse.
No, I don't think she's that either. I wouldn't be backing her again or in Cheltenham for anything. I think I think there was a physical issue at the start, and that didn't help, and it's hanging away a bit. But yeah, she needs it softer. She's a chaser. She was never a 2 mile champion hurdler, and I think the early form of State Man was a bit false, and it didn't materialise in the day. You know, and she's been beaten by Golden Ace again round there. Um, she's just she's a galloper and she's a grinder. And, the champion hurdle, you need a change of gear, and she didn't have
Yeah.
it. Even though there might be excuses for her, but yeah, even around Cheltenham, and she'll probably be a mare chase next year. You'd still have that in the back of your mind. For horses that don't act at Cheltenham, they tend to stay winless.
Let's go into the champion chase where obviously another odds-on favourite for Nicky Henderson get beat, but we'll cover that in a wee second. I want to club the 4 o'clock and 4:40 together because Cheltenham Festival this year was obviously like we'll get into the Michael O'Sullivan Supreme later on, but that 40 minutes where Marine National won the champion chase and then Jazzy Matty won the Grand Annual, like I don't think there'll be many racing fans in the world who weren't moved and just a kind of some sort of lump in their throat after that because that was a marvelous occasion.
Yeah, it was remarkable. A bit like kind of the Jack de Bromhead aspect of it. When Honeysuckle won, and then that continued into the Thursday. John Hale's the late owner as well, Colwell
Yeah.
Potter, and Henry de Bromhead winning two big races in the Thursday. So it tends to kind of happen around there, and it does give credence that there's something special that happens above. And yeah, they were both fully deserved successes as well.
What do you think of the race? Obviously, like a lot's been made about the start with John Bonn makes a bad mistake. Like, do you think this is his last chance to win for John Bonn? Do you think this is his last chance to win at Cheltenham?
Well, I mean, if a fully fit Sergino comes here, next year, he wouldn't even have De Boinville on board, would he? He'd probably be usurped, and Marine National, I don't think will get any worse. So, I mean, that did look like his golden chance, and it seems to have gone. And it went in a similar style to El Fabiolo, where we'll take him on Solness, we even take Solness on Menor Gavin, and he just went a mental pace, and it forced a mistake. He was posted out wide. The start really inconvenienced him. I mean, it really did him in, to be honest, I think, and he probably did okay to get second, even though Liberty Hunter fell and Quilixios fell. He'd probably been fourth, but yeah, I mean, just 2 mile races at championship pace. If you make mistakes, you're not going to win, and that's what happened to him.
We'll go into the Stairs hurdle. Bob Ollinger beat Tia Hooper 1-2 for Rob Coor. Tia Hooper, all four favourites get beat in the championship races. Tia Hooper, though, I think he probably showed the most out of the four. Like he showed, like Bob Ollinger, like you. I remember you being on the preview saying you didn't fancy Bob Ollinger at all. Was it the fact he wouldn't stay, or was it just that you thought he was gone at this?
I just thought he wouldn't win. Simple as that. And I didn't give him much of a chance. I mean, Henry de Bromhead's obviously got him back. Apparently they found something, in his back that they fixed eventually. Now, you would love to have known that beforehand, but
Mm-hmm.
um, apparently they found an issue, and he did hang a little bit less, and he's walking a little bit better. And he's obviously a lot more comfortable. I just didn't think it was a cast iron state 3 miles, but they went a crawl, and he settled out the back. And Rachel Blackmore timed it brilliantly and quicker ground up the hill. It helped him stay. You can't get a bare 3 miles when it's falsely run, and
Yeah,
that's what it was. And Tia Hoopu ran okay.
is it
He's
ground? Do you think?
obviously better on softer ground, I think. But I mean, a lot of talk about Gordon Elliott, being 1 for 28 and things like that. His two best jockeys weren't fit again.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's simple. You talk about 100% fitness wise with the horses and stuff. Jack Kennedy and Sam Ewing were carrying niggling injuries throughout. They were stood down at various points of the week as well, and they really didn't have much cover. And we've seen it before with Davy Russell and Jack Kennedy being out. They don't seem to get much luck in the jockey front when the festival come round. So
mm-hmm.
I was a bit miffed that wasn't kind of brought up more in the kind of picking the bones of it, really, because I think that's very significant. And I thought it was significant to Hooper because he couldn't drive with his legs, Jack Kennedy, efficiently enough. So he wasn't going to win either way, probably, but it certainly didn't help him to try and make it a kind of stamina battle. And I think the same issue with the Brown Advisory against Lecky Watson for them was that the more attritional the race is, the more attritional it is in the jockey as well.
Yeah.
You can't offer it that much, then that's what's going to happen. They'll be found out in the finish.
Let's move into the Gold Cup now. We thought, like, at least the way the weeks went in terms of favourites. Surely Gallop and Deschamps can't get beat, but obviously Gavin Cromwell's, I know the way you're thinking, won. First of all, before we get into it, right call not to go to Aintree.
No,
Okay,
I'm controversial here, but yeah, within the racing bubble, of course, it's probably the right decision. Out with it, I find it incredible. I mean, for a sport that barely gets any mainstream coverage now, you have a Gold Cup winner that's a Stonewell in. It's a 5-2 favourite for the Grand National, and a couple of days later, it's like no. I mean, it's the most historic double that you could possibly do in the
yeah.
same year, and it's dismissed. I'm just surprised how automatically dismissed and how quickly it is dismissed. So, yeah, I mean, the general public's race, I think it would have been far more interesting if he was in it.
How impressed were you with him? Like, obviously, we'll get into Galloping the Shops in a minute, but 25 grand supplement, like, he really showed that his ability to stay. Like, the improvement in this horse from this time last year is unbelievable.
In our defence in preview night, he wasn't in the field then, and there
Yes,
wasn't much of a rumour that was supplemented. But I did think that he was a big
I
danger if he
backed him
ran there.
without the favourite. Yeah, I fancied. I
And,
thought he
and,
was the
and,
one.
and he was the youngest horse in the field, and he
Yeah,
was unexposed in the field, and you can just gradually see him coming to the boil. You just thought that Aintree was the plan,
yeah,
and they've came up. I think they've seen the ground, and they said we can get him beat here. And that's what's happened because he was 15 lengths away the first time they met, and then he chopped it down to 7.5, and he was staying on eye-catchingly the last day at Leopardstown, where you think there is something in him, definitely for sure, and it's just a brilliant steady training performance. They've steadily brought him to the boil. They've had one crack at the jolly, and they've done it emphatically. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Galloping Deschamps was. I don't think he ran that bad.
Well, what did you think? Because we've heard, well, we saw obviously went from 1 to 2 to 8 to 13, kind of just about kind of 20 minutes before the off. It just looked like a weird drift. And then Willie Mullins said first few fences he thought this horse is never travelling. Townend thought he made a bad mistake. I think it was at the fifth. But if I know the way you're thinking, isn't he wins this by 7 lengths, and we're talking about.
Easily.
Do you know what I
He
mean? Like,
beats Gentleman's Game by as
yeah,
far as he did the last day. Look, it wasn't top form. I mean, I had him £10 below his best.
yeah,
I mean,
it
I had
wasn't his
a
best. Yeah,
167 performance, and I know the way you're thinking 173 in line with fact to file, really. I think it's a combination of he's not as effective on that ground. He's spending a bit too much in the air, and that's a kind of sign of a horse that's maybe not in love with the ground, but he acted on it. Didn't show him to his best, but he acted on it, and he was hampered, and he still got to the lead two pretty comfortably. And I wasn't really overly unhappy until the second last, where the winner's just looming large and is going to beat him. Um, and he was beaten by the sole danger at the trip to me. I mean, Banbridge had no chance in a month of Sundays. He's just not a Gold Cup horse. He's a Kempton horse, and the extra trip found him out.
yeah,
Corbett's Cross, unfortunately, fatally had an injury.
yeah.
He was running a big race, but he's not a Gold Cup type. He's not a good ground Gold Cup horse. Um, and Gentleman's Game actually got his ground and ran quite well on a track that he doesn't like. So yeah, I mean, I just think it's a season champion that's maybe his hard races are beginning to catch up with him a little bit, and it's only shown in quick ground. And he's bumped into a very good horse. He did what we thought that Fact to File could do to him at the start of the season. He's the one that's come in, and I think the trainer deserves an awful lot of credit for bringing him on steadily and having one real go in the spring, because I think that was a real good high class target training performance from Gavin Cromwell.
Yeah, absolutely. But 4 championship races, 4 favourites beaten. Let's go into 3 races where favourites did turn up, and I thought each of them impressive in their own way. Lossiemouth won the Mares Hurdle. Again, a lot of people would have been thinking, what would she have done in the Champion Hurdle? Thought performance of the week was Fact to File in the Ryanair. Thought it was magnificent. And Dino Blue finally gets our Cheltenham Festival win in the Mares Chase.
Yeah, out of principle, didn't even watch the Mares Hurdle. Left me cold. Just, I mean, no interest in it after that decision. And watching it back, I mean, she even got the tactical setup. J.D. Grugy bounces out in front, not taking on, slow pace, and Lossiemouth just tracks her. And, it was over by 3-4 hurdles in, really, as long as she jumped properly. And she did. It was a pathetic spectacle. And it needs binned, it needs downgraded. Yeah, the Mayor's Chase. I mean, Dino Blue, I thought was a really good winner. I mean, I know
Yeah,
it's pretty to the form boot and efficient, but I mean, quite sweet on her. I mean, I couldn't see her getting beaten, and she's done it. She's done it really, really well. Very decisive, very convincing, and
Allegory Devassi must be the most baffling horse to train. Like, she's just they're just so unpredictable, but
well, it's
predictable as well.
predictable in that she won't win this,
Yeah,
and she jumps right, and I thought she was jumping all right and doing okay, but you can't concede ground to a horse
nah.
like that and expect to win. And she was going to be an honourable second until she came down the last. But Dino Blue, I mean, it was a good performance. But you can just tell that's the difference with campaigning a horse this was a target backwards from the outset, and they've again, a bit like the Gold Cup winner, they've just steadily brought her along to strike for the day, and that was never ever missing, and I think that was the best I've ever seen her jump as well, to be honest. And she didn't have a great deal to beat. She was clearly the class act of the field on a going day, and if you're confident it was a going day, then 64 SP was a steal, and it was the same story for Fact to File and the Ryanair Chase.
I thought it was superb. I thought it was just a superb performance, just the way he travelled into the race. I think obviously you can argue that maybe certain horses in the race didn't go the way they wanted, but it absolutely just Fact to File was superb, I thought.
No, it was fantastic. But I mean, that's a different. I mean, I've just backed him 5 minutes before the off, really, because he was a decent enough price. He was another at 64, but he just had the ideal setup, ideal trip. The French horse would go out and try and make all. He was tackled by Jungle Boogie, who quite like each way, and his jumping cracked under Ellie Frontsea. And it just paved the way for Fact to File to just sit in behind, utilise his jumping, utilise his speed. And it all panned out absolutely perfectly for him, and he loved it. And he won really, really well. And there's even mutants that he could be a champion chase horse next season.
Would you think of that? I was going to ask you about that. Would you?
I think it's an interesting idea worth exploring. I mean,
they tried it with Allaho, didn't they? Allaho was mentioned as that after they won the
he didn't quite go that way. He might just be an absolute 2.5 miler, but I think they'll explore the Gold Cup route first.
Do you think he's more likely to win a Gold Cup or a champion chase?
I think you'd have to look at the bet and respect him and say Gold Cup. If he settles him, it can either go one or two ways. What they'll try and do over the off season and maybe those post season is, well, can we settle him like we can settle Galloping des Champs events and go Gold Cup, or do we just let him free go and keep him 2 mile and mix him with 2 mile, 2.5? They know that he can do it in the intermediate trip and he can absolutely boss that. So it depends what they want to do. I think they'll explore the 3 mile option first, and if it doesn't work, then they can go back with them. So it's a good option to have in your back pocket either way. Hartwood ran really well in second, and then Roy Allen ran credible race out the places in third again. So I mean, Hartwood further franking the Irish Gold Cup form as well, and at Christmas. So yeah, it's a good division in behind for sure, and it's interesting to see what they do with Fact to File, Punchestown, see what race they go into. I suspect it would still be the 3 miler, but we'll see.
Well, let's move into the novice hurdles. We'll start with the opener, Michael O'Sullivan Supreme Novices Hurdle. 4 to 6, Kopek the board went off. I thought at the start this is going to be a week for favourites. I wouldn't say it was a spectacular performance, but I thought in terms of what he did it well.
Yeah, he did what he had to do. It wasn't in much doubt. There was a bit scruffy jumping. It's funny. State Man and Constitution Hill absolutely wing them, get one wrong, come down, and he kind of bunny hops a couple and fluffs them, and he's okay because he plays it safe. Yeah, I mean, I think he just ran to his form at the Dublin Racing Festival really, and it was enough to hold off William Money and co. Romeo Coolio running credibly in third, as we kind of thought that he was. He was kind of maybe the kind of solid benchmark horse. And yeah, it's all about the winner. And they've got an interesting decision to do. Do they try and brush up his jumping and try and make him a champion hurdle horse at the age of 6 next season? Or do they go fences with him? I think they're probably leaning towards jumping fences with him. Imagine William Moneywood, 7 going 8th.
Yeah.
And Work Ahead just didn't fire at all. Travelled nicely enough in the front and then just absolutely emptied. So I think it was a better Supreme than it was last year. But in relation to the Turners novice hurdle form, I think that's probably a better line to go with.
Well, let's get into the Turners. Obviously, the new Lion, the first Charlo winner since 2006, winning at Cheltenham, won the Turners, beating Yellow Clay in Final Demand. New Lion went out to 3-1. I don't think a lot of people thought, though, it would go the way it did, because he's outstayed what I think to be 2 really promising 3 milers to win this.
Ground as well. Yeah. Better ground suits him, and that's what helped him as well. And the question was, what would he find off the bridle? And he found plenty for pressure when running down the Yellow Clay. and he's now going to be campaigned as a champion hurdle type next season, it seems, and the other two are probably going to be 3 mile chasers for sure. The right three to the four, pull long clear of the fourth. 40 Coach, who probably has a future over 3 miles in fences.
Was fourth.
Um, and yeah, I mean, Final Demand obviously did it softer, and I was a bit surprised it hammered into him. I think they did look at that shallow line and think, nah, this needs to be backed off
It
favourite.
just get outpaced. It didn't jump the last well enough,
Yeah,
and then
he
it
just
just
wasn't quick
struggled.
enough. You
Yeah,
know, on that ground, you know that's what's ultimately caught him out. The Yellow Clay ran really well. He's just a solid, hardy, very reliable top operator. Really, I think, and I'm a bit surprised that he's. I think that Final Demand's about 61 for the Brown Advisor, and he's eights.
yeah.
I don't think. I think this should be about the same price to me, particularly around the old course. And I think he handles quicker ground better, normal spring ground. So I think that would be interesting. Even though Final Demand, I think, it's definitely get a more physical scope to be an automatic top class chaser. But the Yellow Clay can certainly key up one, and they did pull away 4 lengths clear, but it was a great ride round the back. Had to be brave to hold him, because if he did go too soon or dust up, then there's a potential that he could have been outstayed, because he was a speed horse and he found enough for pressure to win quite well at the line.
Good result for you in the Mayor's Novice. Air of Entitlement 16 to 1. You did put that up in the previous show, so I tip my hat off. Beat 6.5, who I thought travelled really well into the race and just maybe got there too soon. But brilliant ride from Rachel Blackmore and Air of Entitlement. The top three here, it worked very well for the both of us.
Yeah, Diva Luna ran a personal best as well,
Yes.
and she'll be suited by further. It's a good race this, yeah. 6.5 jumped absolutely superbly. Do have to talk about the start with Maureen turning the wrong way and then being
Yes.
left behind. You know, that was one of those things. You know,
They
it
did
couldn't happen in a
the
grade
Jockey
race.
Club on their YouTube did have a personal video with the owners, because obviously I think it's like a syndicate for that.
Yeah, it's called Sutton Racing Club,
And
isn't
you
it?
just saw the colour drain for their face. It was just horrible. Like,
I
God
know.
bless them,
You
man.
wouldn't be impressed with that.
Nah,
Supposedly try and make amends at Punchestown things, but I think she was drifting quite badly, and the ground was a big doubt for her
yeah.
anyway. Caroline Bamboo ran okay as well, needs it softer. And 6.5 jumped really well, just got collared. Probably travelled too powerfully, got in front too soon, and has been mugged by Air of Entitlement, who excess stamina over 2.5, put away for this classic kind of de Bromhead Rachel Blackmore job, really. The Mayor's Novice. I mean, very tell me something girl like.
Let's move into the Triumph Hurdle, because I think all kind of three big horses came to the fire, but John J. O'Neill Jr. behind in the Tony Bloom colours with 100 to 1 winner of the Triumph Hurdle, one of 13 for Willie Mullins. I think if he'd 14 and 15, you and I were getting a phone to be saddled up. Like, he'd every jockey under the sun riding, but John J. O'Neill was meant to be at Doncaster that day, I think was the story,
I really don't know.
and ended up at Cheltenham riding Poneros for Tony Bloom, 100 to 1 winner, beats Lalamba. I think Nico de Boinville, I've never seen anyone who thought he'd won a race more. And like, East India Dot was backed off the boards, but Lalamba obviously was looked the winner, and Poneros just came from behind and denied him on the line.
I think that was a sickener of sickeners.
It
Um,
was, it
I know,
really was. That and 6.5 were the sore ones for me.
yeah, that was. So, I mean, to be mugged by 100 to 1 shot, that was probably the ninth string of 11 at Willie Mullins's.
Who
In
was
a
out?
Hartley,
Who was out for a run? Let's be honest, he wasn't out to win.
well, I mean, even if you like it, I always look through every horse as much as possible. And he did have a nice profile, and the owner piques interest, and the jockey booking was semi-interesting. But triumph in your first run over hurdles in your life is a tall order.
It was Papano. That Papano was the one for me. I thought if any Willie Mullins horse on race maybe does something, it's Papano. But he was like horrendous, and this horse just
It's supposed to be, it isn't porno, so it's high class flat form.
yeah.
He has beaten East India Dot quite comprehensively and things like that. So you could have made a small case of throwing a few small quid at it. The one that drifted to a really good each way price with extra places was Lady Vega Allen at
Yes, I think she'll be better over
to
further
be
next year.
fourth. And lesser horses I think would have just dropped away after
Yeah,
making all in a strong pace. She boxed on quite well and came back up the hill nicely. So she's definitely one to note going forward. But I mean, it was like watching a kind of Ian O'Brien special, or spoiling the derby. It was a spoil sport tactic. We might as well fling everything in this. We haven't
Yeah.
fancied it. He's ran 11, and they've gone really, really hard. And Pornos came and mugged the Lambo on the line. And I think Nico de Boinville just thought, if I cover the favourite, I've won this. And
The gamble in the favourite was unbelievable. Like 5-4 even off.
yeah, it was way overplayed, and it played out. If you take the 100-1 outsider out of it, it played out exactly how I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, even the drift, and it didn't really work. I was very confident Lalamba would beat East India though.
Think fences next season?
Absolutely,
I
absolutely.
really
I
excited.
wouldn't put anyone off 9-1 Narkle for him
Yeah.
either. I think he'd be the one to beat in that. I know the 5-year-old factor with Masbrough's inexperience, came to the boil again, and it's not been won by a 5-year-old 2006, I think, but not for 17 as well. I mean, these things are there to be broken, and like Lalamba looks perfectly capable of it. I mean, Sergino would have broken it if he stayed fit, for instance. So there are things like that. I mean, the Triumph, he's just been mugged by one. He didn't even see him. I think if you look at it again, he's coming back him at the line, and
Yeah.
I think if the favourite wasn't there, and Pornos did come and he had a clear sight of him, I think he would have held on. I think he would have won quite comfortably. Um, I think the jockey's got to be kicking himself. He did quite well all week, I thought, to nurse John Bonn into second,
Hmm.
and things like that. Django Bay was a terrific ride as well, to win that, because they allowed him to kind of fill up down the hill and allowed him to finish a race. He could have pulled him up. But, he was a bit too close to a hot pace. He was involved in a lot of scrimmaging. He was flicking his fences, his hurdles. Made a mistake at the second last that ultimately did prove costly, and he's probably challenged at the wrong side down the rail that he's not quite seen the 100-1 danger come out in mug him, because I think he's in the mindset of, if I beat the favourite, I've won this, and it's a case of the top two just looking at each other too much, I think, and forgetting about the rest of the field. And that was the only way that they were going to beat on merit, as if one of these outsiders comes and stays on strongly and gets their act together quickly. But I mean, he's ran like mid 140 straight away there on debut. It's quite remarkable, And I think anyone picking out early triumph horses anti post will stop doing it on account of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to the Albert Bartlett. I think there's a few really good horses moving forward, which we'll cover in our tracker horses later on. Jasmine DeVoe has jumped horrendously all season, but it turns out step him up to 3 miles, hold him up in the rear, and just school him, obviously, over fences, over hurdles. And I thought he was very, very good here, actually. He looked every inch a 3 mile here, 3 miler here.
Yeah, he was gambled on as well. He kind of alluded it in the preview that, if there was a kind of back class act here to take
Yeah.
this, it was him as a
Hmm.
champion bumper winner. And a bit of schooling, a bit of forward, and he's just been delivered at the right time for spring. There's they leave a lot to work on coming in here, and that's what they've done with Yasmin Devoy. He had to get his act together and did. He's helped by, there's only like 3 jumps in the final mile and a bit, and he's won it quite readily. The Big Westerners ran a nice honourable race in second, as you'd think. She was definitely the favourite, had form. It wasn't startling form, but she was a kind of solid
Yeah.
hard type that was inevitably going to run a race. And Darius and Paddy in thirds ran a cracker as well. He's dwarfed them all in the paddock. He's certainly the one that you take forward, going chasing. The problem is, though, I think you've got 3, possibly 4 top class turners novices hurdle there that would beat them over 3 miles over fences. I do think that's. I do think the Supreme in the tunnels definitely has a stronger look to it than the Bartlett did overall.
We'll move into novice chasers. Let's start with the Arkle. I'm very interested to see what you think here. Django Bay, who looked as if he was going to be tailed off, ended up staying on to beat Only by Night. Masborough was third. Load of Sud was fourth. The winners, obviously, we mentioned, brilliant ride to get him back into it. Masborough, though, the banker of the week for you,
Mm.
just mistakes done him.
Mistakes, the tactical setup. I think the track. It was very reminiscent of watching Monkfish back in the day, where you're seeing a class act that's just bungling its way around, and no rhythm between rider in horse at any point, really, and he still almost pulled it out the fire. He wasn't beaten far in the end and down the rail. So it's a testament to his engine, and he's just been done for just everything really going wrong for him. Inexperience as well has probably caught him out. That second last has claimed many a victim, and it partially claimed him. He absolutely ploughed through it, and he was taking on for the lead. It lit him up. He's hitting every second fence. He's made two absolutely howling mistakes that should be race ending by then, beforehand, and he's still only beaten what, 1.5 lengths.
I'm going off that though, that you think the new course will suit him better.
Absolutely. Ryanair, up and trip as well. He's definitely not an actual 2 miler.
Yeah.
His class is going to get him through and get him to that level, and got him to a level where he was sent off that short for an Arkle. And you're just thinking, well, maybe his natural quality is going to be enough, a bit like Ballyburn. You just think naturally his ability is going to get him through. But he made one too many big mistakes, and he was coming back at them the line, and I thought there was enough encouragement to give him. I think he'll be a good horse going forward. I think he's on the standby list for the rest of the season. I don't think he want to play in again at odds on. At Punchestown as well.
Is there a 2.5 novice chase at Punchestown? Am I right?
I'm not sure. I don't think there is. It doesn't come. I think it's just 2 miles or 3 miles. I think.
I'd imagine they'll try 2 miles again, but like I'm looking.
He's in a hard race there.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if they put him away. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to do, because regardless of what, I said this at the start of the season, regardless of what he does this season, he's got a massive future. He's a massive unit that's probably taken this in a little bit, maybe a little bit too soon for him, and he only had a couple of runs coming into it as well. He got out quite late as well, so I would certainly he'd certainly be one of the more forgiving ones, but he was also the one that taught a big lesson, because if your bank of the week goes down like that, and when everything goes wrong and he only gets beat narrowly, it was a week where you think anything can get beat, and the big lesson there was, basically not chase your losses on similar short odds on things. I had a power list, and he was number one, Galloping the Shot was number two, and Kopek the Board was number three. But out of the 11 kind of warm orders that were sub 2-1 that I thought would definitely win, only 3 of them won.
Yeah. Well, I fell victim of that into the Brown advisory, because I wasn't lukewarm in Bally. I was a bit lukewarm in Ballyburn all season. Like, I just didn't think 3 miles at this stage would work, and then it ended up being off 47, and I thought this is unbelievably short. But what do you think here? Like, do you think he has a natural chaser?
No.
So what do you do with him?
Well, you try and find a level with him, but I'm a bit worried for him, because I think he's going a little bit sour as well, because he did throw in the towel quite quickly.
Yeah.
How much Masborough did in a better race, he didn't quit, he didn't throw in the towel, and he made bigger mistakes, arguably. Everything went wrong again, he was keen, and you might be inclined to say, yeah, we can just put a line through it and go again. He didn't get the trip really either, because he was too keen to, so...
Yeah.
You could aim him at a kind of Ryanair. I think they'll persist the fencing route at the moment, but it just all went wrong, but he was too short. I think this is a classic case of really high class novice that's just been caught up. A, for the switch of fences, and B, because others are improving and he's not.
And I have seen the mention of going back to the hurdles. He's 10-1 for the Stayers hurdle next season. Is that an option?
It's an option, but 10-1, it's simply not a bet, is it? Because it might not even go that way, and that's already, you're already saying bye-bye to an anti-post slip early doors. He's bred to be a Gold Cup horse, so there really isn't too much excuse. He reached a high level of like 160 hurdling, and he's not done anything to get near that, chasing-wise. And mid-150s horses have come and beat him. I think the problem, I think it was twofold with Ballyburn, was he was backed at a time as if there was a freakish Tuesday, and they think, well, this can't continue. There's got to be some convention here, and the favourite will win. Because I think a lot of punters, particularly odds-on punters, we've had Dublin racing festivals, we've had Cheltenham festivals, we've become very accustomed to uncompetitive Grade 1 races in open company. And we expect them to win. And when the odd shot comes in, you're kind of thinking, well, this is going to change. So they just backed him and John Dunn just backed him. But there were obvious glaring jumping concerns, bigger jumping concerns to be than there was Masgrave, and jumping ultimately got him beat. So I think it was a kind of reality check of the unpredictability of racing in that regard. Of you can have superior form in the book, and but it can catch you out badly. So one of those things where they kind of ploughed in. I think a little bit chasing wise, and B, I think they really struggled to find the horse to beat him with because they were all kind of similar level. Probably a bit of a blanket in behind, and the one that won, Lecky Watson, is jumped really well. Is the one that can go on the ground, and it's the one that had a little bit of 2.5 mile tactical speed for me.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely fair.
And that's it. And they went quite slow, and he couldn't settle at the back, and he could never get in a rhythm. And again, it was a bit like watching Monkfish, where his race was uncompetitive, and he had so much in hand that he did kind of blunder his way through and win. Ballyburn didn't have that luxury, and he couldn't do it, and he called it quits, and he didn't get him up the hill well either. And you'd be amazed if he was a Gold Cup horse as early as next season. And he's maybe betwixt and between in terms of trip, his technique, and his ability, because he doesn't look a Grade 1 horse over fences.
I'm very intrigued to see what happens with Ballyburn moving forward. Let's move into the other races over the week. We'll start with Tuesday. Tip my hat off to you for your three winners. Town and the Ultima. Put your hands together, won the Fred Winter, and probably the best one, Harticalours winning the National Hunt Chase. Like your Tuesday couldn't have been any better than the three non-graded races, to be honest.
Respect the board, but the concern was it needed to be that good for everything else. Yeah. To work out, to be in profit. That was it. I mean, no scope for anything else. That by the end of the week, that had to come in. And punters at festivals. There is usually one result that does make or break you.
Did you think Town was an Ultima horse when you first saw him?
Absolutely. It's a good horse. Funnily enough, I saw him twice here, and he didn't win it here.
That's right.
I still loved him. He fell in the second one. Very unlucky in both counts, and he has been unlucky since because he had an injury that knocked him back at the start of the season. But he's just so a hoi senor like in everything he does, and he's a bit brave too good. But Kelso put him spot on, and I didn't back him as much as Whistle Stop Tour, who was inconvenienced at the start. Funnily enough, he was lining up beside, and the full start did him, and he was badly hampered at the first.
National next season for Town.
It looks like that kind of way, But I mean, he'll go Gold Cup, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Because there's still a big handicap, and the handicapper's got a lot of catching up to do with him.
Mm-hmm.
He's now low to mid 140s. I think he get £15 for that. But he was one of the most impressive winners of the week.
Yeah, he was.
He alluded to it. He said, like, the Russell pair have got the ability to blow this apart. They were seriously unexposed, and they were well backed. Whistle Stop Tour more anti-post money. But Town on the day was confidently backed. And it was just a question, like Corrick Ramber, thrown in there, big raw horse, a bit inexperienced, if he would take it, and if it was a going day for him, and if he wouldn't make any mistakes, and he didn't, and he just tanked through it. And yeah, he's got to take his chance and something really serious. This time next season, you'd have to think whether it's a big top class handicap or a graded race, because he definitely was. And there's no secrets about it. They did really, really like him,
mm-hmm.
and if you, and that's the benefit of going racing, I think, as well. If you go down there, if you go to an air, if you go to somewhere your local track, you might see a horse that you just automatically warm to and really like, and think, yeah, that's got that horse can have a really bright future, and you can follow it, and yeah, it really kind of backs up horses like that when you like them straight away, and they do get there, and they do get to a good level, and they do get a big day. It shows that you can have a good kind of basic instinct about things, and you can make it work for you in the long run. I was delighted with that. It was definitely the most satisfying win of the week, and for the North as well. Get forgotten about up here quite often, and to serve it down them and slap them around as convincingly as that was nice to see.
And other obviously handicaps during the week, like Harticalours was a big one for you. Doddy the Great was a brilliant story for everybody connected to the Doddy Weir Foundation. Jaguar was the biggest winner of the week for me. Like it just, I needed, that was the one I was like, I need this. But I actually thought again, he was very, I was surprised he went the plate route, but he looks a really progressive horse as well. There's a few impressive handicappers who won I thought were very good. Kyrgyz as well, brilliant selection. Voodoo looks to be thrown in the Martin Pipe as well. Like a lot of well handicapped horses won, which you don't say very often. They either don't get the luck, but this year it turned out like a lot of the handicapped horses were quite easy to back when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, some of them just become obvious towards the end. I mean, some of them don't work in the Coral Cup. Be aware didn't stay, you know, and
Yeah,
too far back and a bit too keen, and it didn't pan out for him. And I wonder if they regret not going county hurdle route with him instead. You know, he might be a Scottish champion hurdle horse
yeah.
in the season. So I mean, things like that. Horticlure was massive. Now Zauer was challenging him two out, which it would have got interesting. But I think he was holding on. You
I
found
think they could meet
generously,
again in the Irish National. Do you see that happening?
yeah, generously plenty from the front. I think the Irish National. I think you want a good ground Irish National there. I actually think Dancing City's quite interesting for that.
Okay.
If 151 on softer ground, he was running quite well in the Brown Advisor, made a mistake, big mistake 3 out that was race ending, and I don't think Cheltenham's his place at all. So I can see him leaving that behind at Fairy House, for instance. And put your hands together. This is one of these kind of unexposed Joseph O'Brien horses that, you know, if you get the right one and the right ground, and you know, between her and beyond their dreams, I thought it was significant that Mark Walsh picked that one, and you know, he can be called the winner for a long way out there. You know, Woodoo and the Martin Pipe called out for a winner for a long way. Kyrgyz, it was never any concern. You know, it was, and I was just
So
going to
smooth.
wait. It was just wait to see who Paul Townend picks and back accordingly. And I didn't fancy Lark in the morning on the day. You know, 4 going 5. It was all a bit too much. Maybe give him another season. Woodoo was very impressive in the Martin Pipe. Caldwell Potter is jumping like Myertown. His jumping's his big asset. He managed to dictate, and it got them all under pressure. And he won quite well, so he'll be flinging integrated company. And Jaguar was things went wrong for him in the race. To be honest, but he was too well handicapped not to win in the end, and he's come out and did quite well, and he'll progress in the future. Johnny Hu kind of flung the Kim Muir away against
That was
Dale.
maybe a contender for worst ride of the week, but when you look back, it maybe wasn't. I thought Derek O'Connor could have done that better.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, the horse's jumping was again a big doubt,
Yeah.
and it was okay. I mean, he jumped brilliantly in debut at Carlisle, and I didn't back him, because I thought he was just a bit too short, and I was kind of glad he got beat as a result, because he's lobbing away, and he's just made a mistake up the hill that's killed his momentum, and he's been called by the Nolan horse daily present. So yeah, and Doddy the Great was a lovely story. It was a good Scottish angle for that. Obviously named after Doddy Weir, and all his prize money goes to the foundation, and it's 61,000 or something. So,
Jericho de Repany is
and
tough
Jericho
enough to
did it.
follow.
Oh, he's another Mister Coffee now. I mean, he had every chance to go by, and he just hung in behind the winner, and he's just going to do that. And he's mightily frustrating. But the good thing was, on the day that he went out to 15-2, which was an each
Yeah.
way backable price for me in the morning, so I didn't bother, and I thought he would definitely hit the top 6, and he did. I mean, Dory the Great tongue ties worked out, and he's come back and won well at 25s, and Feet of a Dancer ran quite well in 4th as well. So sometimes it's just, fortunately, he was winning the first day, but you know, picking up the odd place, it keeps you ticking over, and it's definitely not a bad way to play the festival when you're. I mean, I was in a fortunate position that I was in front like day one to quite a large degree, and it was a case of not giving too much of it back, and fortunately I didn't. But yeah, tough 4 days, but enjoyable nonetheless.
How many tracker horses have you got? Horses that didn't win that are interesting each time out? Because I've got, let me just count here, 9.
9. Well, I just kind of narrowed it down to one really, but I mean, I think Vanillier in the cross country,
Yeah.
where he took the wrong course and they lost about 5-6 lengths, and he's come rattling out for third. You've got to kind of take a massive look at him for a Grand National, because he's undoubtedly as well handicapped as Stumptown is. Interesting if the jockey partnerships stay the same. I'd imagine they would.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. Yeah,
And with I know the way you're thinking ruled out quite quickly. It's because JP McManus has plenty of options, and the defending champion in Iroko and the trainer has two options in the cross country, which is a race that's been well utilised as a prep race for the Grand National. So yeah, Vanillier was definitely one to mark up when third in the cross country.
yep. I'll just fly through these quickly. I thought in the Boodles, I know he finished sixth off top weight, but I thought Wendrox
Mm-hmm.
showed really well. I think he will be a horse going forward. Grand Daniel, a few of these are Henry de Bromhead horses, by the way. Jasco the Dames, I thought
Mm-hmm.
belted the second last, absolutely like ploughed through it. I think going forward he could be a decent operator. Nürburgring could be in the Mr. Coffee
Mm-hmm.
bubble, but Galway plate already. I'm trying to get prices as soon as possible. Galway plate for
Yeah,
me.
he won the Galway hurdle, didn't he? So
Yeah.
yeah, possibly. He's a bit small for a jumper for me, but yeah, you could see it.
Two in the Triumph, Lady Vega Allen and Place de la Nation. Lady Vega Allen, I think whether they maybe look at Fairy House for the Grade 1 Mares Novice this year, but whether she stays as a novice next season or they decide to go Mares Hurdle, whatever they do, I think a serious horse for next season. Place de la Nation is definitely a Mares Novice Hurdle contender next year. There's no prices available, but she looks to be the one that could kick on. I thought Ethical Diamond ran a good race in the county, finished fourth, kicked on. Maybe see him going over further.
Jockey problem. Patrick Mullins
Could
here.
have been.
A
Could
nice
have been.
stat. In non-amateur events, he's not for 56 at the festival
I seen that. Yeah, I seen that.
at all.
Two in the Albert Ballot. I thought yellow car for Harry Redknapp. Those colours that
Mm-hmm.
have done really well at this race. Thought he was very good. I thought Wendigo was extremely unlucky in the race. I think he would have been at least third in that race. I think all five of the Ballot horses are potentially good operators next year. And I thought the Martin Pipe Active Authority for Ollie Murphy was very, very good. Wasn't going to win or anything like that, but I think did very well to finish second. I think all of those next time out they'll have my money.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Champion Bumper I thought was a weak race, but I mean, Copacabana and Game of Inches it just went quick enough
No.
on drying ground. So we won't be surprised if you can come back to them for some of the novice hurlers down the line because they could come back to form with a bit more better ground. And I just think he probably got those out a little bit too late, and they were found
Yeah.
wanting as well a little bit. So although it looked a pretty poor Champion Bumper,
I thought the
don't be
one in the bumper I actually
surprised
quite
if it
liked
comes
was the
right.
Maxwell horse. I think he did all right, like finishing fifth.
Problems
But
with jockey there, isn't
yeah,
it?
no, yeah, but like
I'm not being glib or harsh about it, but I mean, when you have an amateur jockeys in professional graded races, and it's a problem for punters. It makes you've got to kind of hope that the price is factored in that regard.
there was some gambling Calypso chance. Like I was like 5-2 was insane to me
It's
even off that price.
it was quite a few of them that I didn't really understand, and Ballyburn and Johnburn going off as short as they were
Kopek to me was the one for me. Like I get all
ones
the
of
hype,
them.
but he went off what 7-4,
Yeah, he was beaten
like
quite quickly.
seven to
Kopech didn't
four
use
was
it.
ridiculous.
Yeah, 74 out to 5-2, but he was always that short anyway. And Mullins, Martin Pipe, last day, you just tend to kind of dive in or forget. I mean, East Indian Express was plunged in that.
Yeah,
I didn't think that get a good ride.
nah,
Ascot, Kempton, Sharp Track. You need to not get involved in that pace battle and back out of it a little bit and travel in a bit handier. Yeah, and Kopech to me, I mean, I'd imagine they'll try and campaign him 2 miles over fences next
yeah.
season.
I thought my thought was maybe
I think he's
with
kind of
the
speed,
Arsenal.
and he was quite fresh in the old speed, and I think he was given kind of next to no chance of staying. So I mean, I wouldn't completely write him off down the line. There's obviously something there, whether it comes to hand, maybe he's got a mark, isn't he? So I mean, you could race him a little bit more, and maybe could be graded high, it could be Grand Annual type. Who
Well, I
knows?
was thinking like when we were talking about Kopek, the board potentially champion hurdle. Like Amsterdam seems to be like
Amsterdam,
very
Cheltenham.
under so like of first year and over here over hurdles and then they go over fences and then you've got Kopek to me could be in that mix as well because he was planned to be a novice chaser this year.
Yeah, and
So,
I mean, you see that with like Ponros, he could anything that could be flung in,
mhm.
that's a little bit, and he might keep them further back, from France to get in, and then you're kind of looking at more angles that you're not really accustomed to anti-post wise. I mean, anti-post wise, I think it was pretty frustrating for me. But
I had one winner. Wonderwall was my only winner, and they went off bigger on the day.
it's difficult. I think it's borderline dead. I'm afraid. I mean, they've got off going off bigger, and they're still getting beat. And even if, and I found shorteners. I mean, that big massive Trixie that I put,
Hmm.
they all went really really short.
Hmm.
But Nurse Susan wasn't quite fit enough and backed out of it at the second last. Personal
Yeah.
Ambition was shafted by the starter, and third time lucky just didn't quite get into it from a creeping ride, but it was punted on as if it was worth a chance. Just couldn't quite pick them off, and it wasn't the force of old. So they were three okay bets in terms of shorten, but they never really gave a winning chance. So the achievement was there and kind of finding the right races and running, and getting the right price. But I mean, and it gives you the odd kind of soft thrill for 2 weeks of humouring you along, and thinking, yeah, that the dream's on. But it's very, very, very difficult. Then you don't get paid out ultimately at the end of the day when you do that. And fortunately, I learned the lesson soon enough with Masborough that Maltese was swiftly knocked in the head as well after that, and I managed to make it up thanks to Horticulture, because it took a big dent in what was doing daily and race by race, and fortunately I did it late and didn't put too many on that it didn't really cloud my judgment too much, and I did generally okay race by race. There's going to be 4 or 5 or 6 races where you're just going to get wrong. You have to accept it.
Yeah.
But if you're avoiding the short ones that get beat is almost as important as backing the right ones as well.
Right. Let's kickstart our 2026 anti-post folders. One pick. You want to go first, or will I?
Yeah, you can go first.
Right, I'm not going for any horse that ran at Cheltenham. I think you know where I'm going here because I put him up this year and he didn't run, and he went into that famous Golden Park bumper and won it quite impressively. And you can actually thank me for getting a prize for the in Bet 365 for the Supreme, because there was no market where he was in it at all. And then I done the
Yes.
request thing. Kassar Fatal 25 to 1 for the Supreme Novices Hurdle. Very, very impressive, I thought, at Golden Park. Clearly a horse with a big future. Was put up as a horse to follow this season by a certain Patrick Mullins, so there's clearly something there. I think 25 to 1 for the Supreme. It's actually looking at the Bambino Fever 14 to 1 for the Supreme. Like this year already, you weren't getting that last year. I remember Jasmine DeVoe being 6 to 1 for the Supreme at this point last season. So 25 to 1 for a Supreme horse. Sarfatal could probably go any other route. We'll probably find out in November that he's lined up for all three. But I think at 25 to 1 for the Supreme just now, I think he's probably I think he's the most impressive bumper horse I've seen in the Mullins Yard this season. And I'm including Bambino Fever in that. So for me, 25 to 1, whether you see him at Punchestown or not, I think he's a horse for next season.
Yeah, probably get trying to get one more run into him, I imagine. At bumper level, if he's shown that form and he think he's that good, I'd imagine he would take his chance at Punchestown, like a lot of the better horses sometimes do. Yeah, he's obviously got the right background for it. You're taking a long chance, a long shot this way, whether he'll go that Supreme route or not. Turners, I suppose he could go either way, really. Anyway, and
We
yeah,
won't know until the week before the festival, let's be honest. It'll be a Ballyburn thing.
well, if it's still an option by the end of the week, the festival, he's still there, and he's talked it as a supreme horse, and you've done well,
Okay.
regardless of what happens. I would think so. Yeah, it's definitely. I think there's probably definitely a lot of worse selections out there. And I can go along with that.
Right, what's yours? Remember you put Zent up last year, and I still think I think she would have been challenging in the Mayor's Hurdle this season. So what's this year's one?
It's a double, 98 to 1 double.
Okay.
Lalamba in the Arkle and Masborough in the Ryanair.
Okay.
Just think they'll go there. I think Masborough, I can see him, top end estimate, I can see him doing what Vactifile did. Just another year under his belt. I think it'll be more the finished article. And there must be a good chance that Factifile will be aimed at most likely the Gold Cup, probably even the Champion Chase. And you'd be disappointed. he'd be disappointed if they reverted to Ryanair type. And I think Marshman needs the intermediate trip, and I think he needs that kind of intermediate race. And I think it will suit him going up and trip. I think he's high class, and I think he showed that his engine as well in getting beat in the new course. I think with a normal round of jumping, with a normal pace with a bit more normal luck, I think he'd comprehensively reverse the form with everything that he ran against in the Arkle. Sergino, if he comes back, will go champion chase. They'll try and avoid that. And you're looking at kind of new horses coming in here. If Factifel doesn't go in early front, say he's a busted flush, Cheltenham's not his track, simple as that. You'll never see him there again.
The division's pretty weak.
Hartwood probably the one to beat by default as second, but he is eminently beatable. He's not a top notcher. He's a reasonably decent horse, but it's high 150, low 160 form really. Voyal and Jungle Boogies are all too old, and so is Protectorate really. So, and you'd be taking a bigger leap of faith with Ballyburn and Masborough, I think, if that's where they go with him. So it's a race that usually cuts up. I think it's ideal for him long run. Don't really see much coming from the Champion Chase or coming down from the Gold Cup. I think they're pretty thin on the ground, and I think that the short price favourite there is making his price. And they must be looking. Okay, you might drop back here, and you're kind of done in a little bit early on, but you can do the each way double. And if you're asking me out the top of the market, one that turns up there with potential that could go there, it would definitely be him. I think the trainer would definitely want it to be that way, and I think the owner probably would too, because he's already got a Gold Cup, the defending Gold Cup champion there. Factifile was bought as a Gold Cup horse, he's getting an extra year, but you might even have the pace to come down and be his champion chase horse like John Bond. I mean, John Bond could go up and trip, but 10-year-old, it's asking a tall order. I think, the young horse, he can come of age, like I know the way you're thinking of Factifile at Festival next year. And I just think it'll be much more suited to a longer trip in the new course as well. And he's a big, rangy, scopy sort. And he showed enough in the Arkle to think that you can forgive him and he can put that by. And yeah, I think he's definitely one to consider in a race that can cut up. And I think you'd be reasonably confident that far out that that's where he would go. Lalamba's the other one. I do think that he's a star and that he should have won the Triumph. He's just been mugged at the line. And, I think even if Nico de Boinville saw him, I think he would have readily pulled out more if he needed to. And he's doing things that kind of Masborough was doing, Sergino was doing. Like, you don't think, although he didn't win the race, he does look like a top class prospect to me. He looks like the real deal. They didn't get Sergino there last year, and I don't think he should be twice the price. And this is Copec the board. I think you've got more security over the summer with Alamba because he's definitely going chasing in my book. I'd be amazed if they stuck hurling with him. I think connections, owner and trainer, still get Constitution Hill, for instance. Connections have still got State Man and are going there. They've got horses that can kind of come in here. He looks ready-made Arkle contender to me, and as you were saying with Jasmine DeVoe early in the season, you're getting sixes. I mean, you're getting about 5-6 to 1 when Shishkin won at 4-9, and Arkle again, like the Ryanair, it's a race that tends to cut up. 5-6 runner heat, maybe, top class, short price favourite, and
have to laugh. Constitution Hill's 8-1 for the Arkle.
All things being equal, he's going to be one of two. The other one being Copec de Boer, that's going to be top class, and even in a bad year, if they make it, it could be a John Bonville Fabio situation. Yeah. John Bon went off 2-1.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're taking nines. I don't think that's bad. He's and because you've got rid of the 2.5 mile race, that's where he's going to go. They're not going to step him up to 3 miles at that age quickly enough. And I think Nicky Henderson will drum in plenty of experience into him.
And it's a method that's worked for the trainer. Do you know what I mean? Like he knows what he's doing with these horses. Like, he's had how many he
still won the Arkle with, let's be honest, his second string, Django Bay. He wouldn't have been there if Sergino was there. And Sergino's 72 for a champion chase. I just think Lalamba's much better bet at this stage. He's twice the price for a lesser race, and one that cuts up, and one that he's not going to deviate from really. And we know that he's fitting well, unlike Sergino, where you have doubts in that regard. So I mean, I think they're both solid, bona fide types, and if they do go that way, which I think they will, and they get their sound.
Going to wrap up the show there, and the series countdown to Cheltenham is in the bag for 2025. But good news is we are sticking around. We've got plenty of action between now and the end of the jump season. We've got the flat starts again this Saturday. Okay, we've got Doncaster. Obviously, there has been flat meeting in Ireland, but we've got Aintree, Ayr, Fairyhouse, Sandown, Punchestown. So we are going to be very busy from here to the end of the month. Callum, thank you very much as always for a brilliant series, and we'll see you again for the next episode of our new horse racing show.
Yeah, indeed. Catch you then.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, who tuned in over the past series, folks, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you.